if there's a case of discrimination that comes before the court that involves sex discrimination, direct discrimination against a woman, still in 2024, it's treated differently than race. For a state to discriminate against someone based on race, they have to have a really, really good reason for doing it. Strict scrutiny, compelling interest. In 2024, if you write a law specifically, explicitly discriminating against women, it's not strict scrutiny, it's not a compelling interest.
Let me set up one contrast to draw on what Michele was just saying. We knew that abortion rights was going to be the driving force in the 2022 elections. We knew it. But we read all the polls coming out from the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of it, CNN, and again, they said women have gotten past this now, and what's really an issue is the economy and inflation. That is going to be the driving force, and they had their analysis that proved that that was so for women as well as men, and for young and old, and for didn't matter what race or we knew it. So we hired a pollster, Celinda Lake, great reputation as a pollster, because we wanted to test whether what we thought we knew was accurate. And here comes the polling results showing that, and we looked at the battleground states, we did a huge oversample of young people, because that was a big issue when young people come out, and all ages. And this is what we found in 2022, going into the midterms, that for all women, the issue of abortion was tied with any concerns on the economy. So they were concerned about both issues equally. For young people, abortion and women's rights was the top issue, and nothing else came close. It was the only issue they were casting their vote on. And it was not just abortion, it was broader than that. It was women's rights and the Equal Rights Amendment. And I was so, we couldn't get anyone else to pick that up and cover it. Ms. published it, we were writing about it, we tried to get other media sources to cover it and to pick up on the information. Couldn't get anybody to write about it. And of course, they all had predicted wrongly what would happen in 2022.
But I want to tie this all together. And actually, what's super interesting to me on this both and idea too is the idea that abortion and the economy are not the same conversation too is also a sign of not feminist-focused media telling the story. Right? Because and that's another place where that kind of multi-layered textured storytelling is needed. Minus the clickbait, minus the headlines, minus all of that. There's still that push and pull. But we have however many days till November now. I've lost count. It's been dog years. But in the next 3 months, what is your vision for what the media needs to look like to tell the story right? I don't want to even go back to how they told it wrong. We all know that story. What do we need to demand to get it right? And what do we, those of us who have participated in it, need to do to make sure it's done right from here to November? Take it away. And beyond, of course, it doesn't end in November.
Well, I think we're probably entering, to use a word that I really don't like to use, but we're entering a nasty phase of this political period. And that means that there will be, if you believe that you've seen it all, you have not. There will be allegations and name-calling and all of this. And I think that we somehow, and I still think of myself as somewhat a part of the media side, the reporting side, is to find the courage to pull back from that, to call it what it is, to put it in its proper place, and to not be frightened by it, because I think that's my fear, that we're entering a frightening period where people will be afraid to express their opinions, afraid to go to the polls, afraid that even if they do go, it's not going to matter. And so I think that all of us need to be on the side of bravery, enough to understand that it is okay to be kind.
So let me just say this in relation to the question, because I agree with you, Jen. It doesn't have to be an either or. We've got corporate structures to deal with. We've got the clickbaiting to deal with. We actually hosted an event coming out of the peak of COVID with women journalists who don't write for Ms. and some have, but it was great. They were so excited to be together, and they came from a variety of news organizations, New York Times and others, because I'm committed to that. I think it is really, really important that women journalists have the opportunity and platform to be able to come together. And oftentimes, there may be things that they actually want to write about, that they care to write about, but they can't get it through. It's not perceived as being urgent, important, etc. No matter where it is that they are writing. So something that we probably don't have enough time to talk about are these corporate structures and what's happened in terms of media. Who owns media? What are the political connections to who owns media? What does that mean about local papers that are now going out of business? And how does that connect then to the whole clickbait culture? That connects to the headlines that are on the social media. What do you get to drive someone to click on it? And these headlines that really do oftentimes a disservice more broadly to the campaign of our democracy. So if we're to get back again to this question about why women matter, I think that there's a lot to be said about our democracy and how we've overlooked women as real contenders in our democracy. If we look back decades ago, there's a way in which we could see it with black women protesting in the streets, right? Fannie Lou Hamer and others making democracy come alive, changing major things, right? Rosa Parks was an activist. She wasn't just a woman sitting on a bus one day. There was a lot of strategy that was behind that. And so as we think about these issues, I think one flashpoint where we can see how women's votes matter, after the Dobbs decision, the midterm elections in 2022, there are folks that were saying it's going to be a red wave, red tsunami. Women have gotten over this little Dobbs thing, you know, they've forgotten about it. And boy, it wasn't even a splash. Women came out, and I was telling folks who are like, I'm so nervous. And I said, you know, look, what you need to think about, what mother sitting across the table from her 10-year-old is going to say, you don't deserve a future? This mother who's been paying for ballet lessons, soccer lessons, transporting the kid all over the place, or what mom who has her daughter who is now in college or freshman year is going to say, yeah, you get stuck with Chip if something happens that you didn't anticipate. No, that's not going to happen. And what we saw over and over again with those ballot initiatives, whether it was in red states or blue states, that women were showing up, and men too, saying this is a matter about our democracy. So one way to look at the concerns of women is that it's a viewpoint, a lens to measuring the temperature of our democracy.
One thing that we do that mainstream media doesn't do is we not only report what's happening, but from a very deep understanding. So we have constitutional law scholars reporting on what's happening to women in the court system, to women's rights and equality. So it's not a reporter who covers the court, and they learn a lot over their lifetimes, but we have constitutional law scholars and practitioners who can not only report what's happening in a way that a broader public can really understand it, but what are the implications of that?